Good morning, warriors. Welcome to the U Movement. I am B. It feels freaking fantastic to say good morning because mornings has been exceptionally challenging. Well, sleep has been exceptionally challenging for me as of late. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the degree of fatigue and burnout and exhaustion that comes after an intense phase of healing, and the convalescence that is required on your healing journey as one of the phases that comes later on in your awakening, which is where I currently find myself. But before I do talk about this exhaustion, I want to do a little bit of a look back at all of the phases that I have identified on my awakening. So where you are on your awakening, you might be able to kind of gauge what you're going through as a normal part of the process. And more and more, I have identified that my awakening began, I'm going to guesstimate, somewhere in and around 2015, 2016. And when that awakening began, I was in a slow decline into the dark. Okay, so a pre-awakening phase. There was no cognitive awareness of the fact that I was going into awakening. Just my life was going along, going into a decline. My relationship was in turmoil. I think it was back in 2015. My father passed away. So there was a loss. Then the next thing that happened was I was in severe depression, in a really dark place, and just feeling absolutely miserable. I was starting to go into my healing crisis, and more my physical health was just on a massive decline. I lost a job. I was fired from a job that I had, which was upsetting and had its own little mini legal battle involved, and was, a trying time. And I mean, it was just like going into the depths. So by the time I hit 2019, I was severely depressed. I was exceptionally fat. I was at my absolute fattest. I was collecting diagnoses and health issues like they were hockey cards. Diabetes, fibromyalgia, sleep apnea, irritable bowel syndrome, migraines, chronic fatigue, which I thought was adrenal fatigue at the time, which it likely was. The list goes on and on. Memory fog, brain fog. I mean, I was having difficulty. I failed an Alzheimer's test. I had difficulty walking up the stairs. Functioning in life was like it was so brutal. It was so bad. And I was so numbed out on antidepressants and so unaware and so disassociated and so just, it was bad. I look at the photographs of me back in that phase and I look like a zombie. You want to talk about the zompocalypse? The zompocalypse already happened, people. We are the zombies that were walking around in a total pharmacological daze. And then the epiphany happened. I got insanely sick. And I don't know what I was sick with. It could have been COVID, but technically, they didn't announce COVID until January. But I was very sick. December. My oxygen levels bottomed out to 80, and it was bad. I thought I was going to die. I even asked the question, am I dying? No, you're just sick. You're fine. And I'm like, no, I'm dying. So the question, I just want you to be aware of that fact that like something is inside of you that feels like death is imminent. And very shortly thereafter is when the epiphany came, when the first clairaudience kind of experience where soul was very loud and there was a real communication that I had never really heard before, but there was the wake-up call. So this epiphany wake-up call came, and it was save yourself. You need to save yourself. And it was in relation to looking at my very dysfunctional, crumbling marriage, and I didn't know what else to do. And I looked around and I was like, I'm fucked. My life is the biggest fucking clusterfuck. Excuse the French, but if you know me by now, I swear. And I need to unfuck this shit. I need to figure out a way to save myself. And so began the Unfuckening Movement for me, because that was all about unfucking my own life. And it was a mess. And I knew I wouldn't be able to survive in this world unless I put my health as the numero uno top priority. So we didn't have conscious awareness at the time that I was awakening, but I did have conscious awareness at the time that I needed to evolve or I was going to die, is what it came down to. And so we have to hit rock bottom, and rock bottom to me was a major health collapse. I lost another job, and because of COVID hit, and I became redundant, and everything was just, it was just a clusterfuck extraordinaire. My life was a dumpster fire. And when I had the epiphany of evolve or die, save yourself, I was motivated like I've never been motivated before to start making changes and start doing things differently. And I prioritized the first and foremost had to be my physical health and getting the diabetes under control, because that one was the most disruptive to my life. And so I set about losing weight. Priority one, lose weight. And I altered my diet dramatically. I've done many videos I have a food and sugar playlist. Please go check that out. If you have questions, please feel free to ask. And then I started my ABLE program. Again, if you don't know the ABLE program, there's a playlist for that. I started doing Align Walking. If you don't know what that is, then get into the body playlist. Or there's a playlist called the Unfuckening Movement that you could play in order of me attempting to unfuck my life. And I started the U movement because Soul was like, well, if you're going to do a journey, I wish I had started it actually earlier, but I started it when I started it. So there you go. At that stage when I started it, I already lost a good 80 pounds. But once I put my mind to unfucking my life, I entered into a new phase that was a bit of a bliss phase, because nothing was going to stop me. All of a sudden, things became possible that weren't possible before, like weight loss, like curing my depression, like doing new adventures. I joined an improv group. I got an agent to fulfill a childhood dream of being an actress. I was just going to take life by the horns and say, okay, I need to unfuck my life. And getting at the agent and the actress was all about, I'm gonna use my tools that I have to help me figure out a way to escape from this situation that I need to escape from, because I'm gonna have to rely on my skills. And that's what brought me back into acting. Although I think that the acting really primarily served as a means to get me comfortable in front of a camera again, because my own journey involves a camera. And using the improv skills of being able to talk on point without having to script anything. I don't ever script my videos. I don't even edit them anymore. I do everything in one take. And if I do need to edit something, those are all my previous videos. More and more I've gotten comfortable. So I think my acting served as a stepping stone, but I don't think it was the end goal. But at the time I thought, oh, well, if I can get acting gigs, then I can get money in the house, because acting was a skill that I had from the time that I was quite young. Also AKA known as being really good at masking as an autistic person. I think probably most autistic people have very good acting skills. Is what I would hazard a guess, because they've had to conform in different environments and not be allowed to be their authentic self, not speak the way they want, not talk, not make the facial expressions that are natural to them. They have to put on a thing. So, I'd have my customer service hat and I'd be like, hello, how are you today? And that wasn't who I was. But now I can just be me. So this is where I was at. And that phase was the bliss phase. And bliss phase was all about manifesting all kinds of amazing things. Just the energy was I pumped up. I felt good. The community of improv people that I was with was just awesome. It was the first time I'd felt like I really belonged with a clique of people, and cliques were never my thing. I was more always kind of a one-on-one kind of person. And I was thriving. I was thriving for the first time in my life. I went from being whoa down here to yes, anything's possible. Life is getting better every single day. I was listening to my soca music. I was out walking. I was losing weight. I was feeling good. And I was writing. It was good. It was good. Just the flow was of spirit in connection and feeling all zen in 5D experiences. And it was going just hunky-dory. And then in 2021, I had soul recognition with my twin. And now, listen, my twin had already come on scene about 2016 when as I said, this was going, but I had no soul recognition. I had no idea I was awakening. Okay, it's really important you understand that I had zero knowledge that I was going through a spiritual awakening when I was going through a spiritual awakening. I had zero knowledge that my twin flame was a twin flame. I knew of the term, but it wasn't it didn't resonate with me as anybody in particular. I knew there was some weird kind of energy when I was around this person, because it was a business type of situation where we would meet each other for 20 minutes. It wasn't a big, but over the years, we would see each other here and there to do business stuff. And in 2021, business stuff brought us together again, and I was standing there and I had soul recognition. I had a heart activation, which was I didn't know what was happening. Also important to note, not knowing what's happening is really important to note. And then the next day I had a full spontaneous Kundalini, full, which means it was very intense energy that flowed through my entire body, out the top of my head. It was just orgasmic, it was ecstatic, it was bliss, it was just like I can't even explain. I just can't even explain that. And then within a few hours, I am bawling, crying. And so what happened is I went from that bliss phase, and all of a sudden we're turning a corner into going into what is extensively known as dark night of the soul. And when I say dark night, I wish it was a single solitary night, because it's been 3 years in and out of dark night of the soul, the void, which I'll get to. But dark night of the soul is all about purging and clearing out all the denser energies that are inside of you. So all your childhood wounds, like within a few weeks of that Kundalini, spontaneous full Kundalini, once the Kundalini is unleashed, it's unleashed. It's energy that is moving through your body, and it's going to be clearing out everything on the physical, on the emotional, on the mental, on the spiritual. It's a massive purge. And with that, all your childhood wounds will surface. And I can recall one of the first times that I had like childhood wound surface. I was like an infant, and I was lying on the floor. I just collapsed onto the floor and started bawling my eyes out. I couldn't move. I was just lying on the floor like a small, tiny little infant. I could feel pain in my back where hands would have been to pick me up. And I mean, it was unnatural, the sounds that were coming out of me. And I still didn't have a clue what was happening to me. I didn't know what was happening to me. But it was so intense. At this point, I'm starting to research and look into things like twin flames, Kundalini. So it was a couple months after my spontaneous Kundalini that I figured out, oh my God, this is what's going on, is I'm having a twin flame situationship. What does that even mean? I don't understand. Please help me. So I started looking for all kinds of information, and probably a lot of the wrong places, but luckily some of the right places as well. I started researching spiritual awakenings. I started researching Kundalini awakenings because I didn't know what those were. Even though I had a background as a Reiki master for 20 years, and I had, slight knowledge of the term. I knew the term dark night of the soul. I knew the term Kundalini. I knew the term twin flame. But knowing the terms of things and knowing what these things are is two very different things. And so I started deep dive, as well as spirit is pushing me this way and that way to do a whole bunch of things, to quit all these substances, to change my life, to make massive changes of direction. And it was difficult, to say the least. It was very, very difficult process. So through 2022, I had asked for a divorce and I was trying to escape from a narcissistic marriage that proved to be the hardest thing I've ever had to escape from in my life. I was dealing with all kinds of emotions and trauma releasing and spiritual self-healings. My mother passed away. I was losing friends left, right. I lost my improv group. I lost my agent. I lost my, it was like, it was like catastrophe after catastrophe after catastrophe. And the PTSD symptoms that I started having, because before, I was so good at masking and holding everything in that, I looked really strong, and I am not a strong person anymore, or I'm strong in a different way, I suppose. Because where before I was quite stoic and holding all this nonsense inside of me for all my life, now it's all coming out, and the PTSD symptoms really started for me. So I also started developing shakes, which is known as kriyas, when the energy is flowing through you so dramatically. You'll see my head wobble. I developed chronic nerve pain here that has no known cause. Just a total collapse. In the tarot decks, there's a card called the Tower card, and it's depicted as a burning building with people jumping out, and that's what Dark Night of the Soul is like. It's your life just absolutely collapsing out from under you. Everything you could possibly go wrong is going to go wrong. Even appliances breaking left, right, and center, or and legal battles and loss of money, loss of jobs, just absolute chaos. And there is a purpose for that. One, because your ego has developed a lot of strength. That's where, when I said I used to be strong, I used to be egoically strong. I had a very strong ego for a very long period of time that I joke must have been the size of the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man for the amount of crisis and chaos required to collapse and destroy the ego. And that's what the process is. It really isn't Dark Night of the Soul per se. It is Dark Night of the Ego, because the ego requires absolute destruction. It's like an internal war or a walk through hell. It is brutal. It is horrible. People downplay how difficult Dark Night of the Soul is. For me, there were so many times that I didn't think I was going to make it. And who that was thinking that they weren't going to make it was ego, and ego didn't make it. To get ego to collapse, to disintegrate, requires a certain amount of pummeling that comes from spirit to destroy it. It is your ego's destruction. So if you know of Hindu gods, there's a goddess by the name of Kali, which is the goddess of destruction. And it's like she is coming in and absolutely burning everything that doesn't belong in your world to the absolute ground. And whilst in Dark Night of the Soul, you should be aware, I had spiritual crisis or emergency or Kundalini syndrome when things go so haywire that I experienced paranoia, I experienced extreme terror, I experienced near psychosis, I experienced dark stuff. And so climbing out of that pit, that, and as I said, the destruction went down and down and down, and you're just walking through hell. And the only thing you can do is some days just one step at a time, some days one breath at a time. I have videos on a playlist called Dark Night of the Soul. Please watch that if you're struggling with this or you need help through Dark Night of the Soul. I have a lot of concern for people out there that are going through Dark Night of the Soul, who go into spiritual crisis and start experiencing psychosis, because my concern is, from my personal experience, that many people will perceive the collapsing of ego, and ego trying to convince you that death is imminent, that they will take matters into their own hands and do a permanent action for a temporary problem. And I've been doing my videos all the way along because I wanted to prevent that as much as possible. I have already lost one friend this year who took her own life. And if I can prevent anyone else out there from making that decision, I'm going to do everything in my power, even if that means, getting in front of the camera and sometimes making a little bit of a fool of myself. I don't really care about my image or anything like that. The messages are too important to get out about spiritual awakenings, because as people go into them, and if they're unprepared and unaware and don't have tools and don't know where to go and are afraid to go to a traditional medical or psychological approach, because what you're actually having is a spiritual thing, and you are terrified of that you're going crazy. So you may not seek assistance, or you might, one way or another, and you might be misunderstood because of the experiences. I know of a lot of people on a spiritual awakening, and I myself had experiences of going to a hospitalized situation. I was hospitalized for 3 days against my will. I was not at all pleased with that. That was highly traumatizing for me. Which then placed in my head that it's not safe. And so because I went somewhere that I didn't feel safe throughout the rest of my awakening, I was like, under no circumstances, doesn't matter what happens, do not, I would not call any medical. Now, I'm not telling you or anyone else. I'm only speaking from my own personal experience. I didn't feel safe. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't feel safe, or that if that's the route that you want to go. But I know a lot of people that have had stays in hospitals. In Canada, they can only hold you 3 days. So it was only 3 days for me. But I know people who have had longer stays, and they said that I've done interviews on UTalk, and you can listen to some of those because some of them say, hey, it served me. Others were like, no, I don't think they understood what was really happening to me, because what's happening is not schizophrenia. What's happening is a spiritual experience, and North American culture or Western culture, because it's not just North American, because Western culture, because they have dissected the body and the mind and the spirit into subsections, the spiritual component isn't connected in to our medical or psychological perspective. Certainly not from a psychiatric point of view, is they don't even consider that what is happening to you is spiritual in nature. So if you are seeking help during your spiritual awakening, please make sure that you are seeking help from somebody who has knowledge in transpersonal psychology. I can't stress that enough, that they have an understanding of at least what spiritual awakenings are. Because if you talk to somebody who has no knowledge of spiritual awakenings and you're going through dark night of the soul and ego collapse, and you're experiencing things on the spiritual level with your gifts, your clairaudience, which is hearing things, your gifts of seeing things, you might be experiencing some hallucinations, or you may not. And psychiatric point of view is going to say you're hallucinating, you're in psychosis, and you're schizophrenic, and we need to give you antipsychotics. Whereas the spiritual approach is going to be, okay, you are experiencing clearings in your third eye chakra that are opening you up to extrasensory perceptions, and you need to be guided gently through. See, two different perspectives. In India, you're very lucky if you have gurus on, down the street that you can go and seek help for. In the Western culture, we don't have gurus on every street corner. So please be, it's very serious. Dark Night of the Soul is very serious. I have to take it very seriously. It's not a joke. What people go through is what I have gone through is not a joke. I've gone through a particularly difficult spiritual awakening, one that would be defined as a shaman's initiation. So within the awakenings, there's awakenings within awakenings. It's like inception, So within a spiritual awakening, there is a Kundalini awakening. Not everybody who's having a spiritual awakening is going to have a Kundalini awakening. Within a Kundalini awakening, there's the twin flame situationship awakening, which, the twin flame situationship triggers a Kundalini awakening, but it's a slightly different Kundalini awakening that might be a lot more intense and a lot faster. And when I say faster, it's still been years. So, spiritual awakenings can last, if you're having this outer realm of spiritual awakenings, it might be a 20-year process. A Kundalini awakening might be a 3 to 7 year process. A twin flame situationship might be so intense that it's much faster and goes at a much faster rate. And then within that, at the very core of it, is shaman's initiation, is when your divine mission is to in some way be a healer and or a teacher or a spiritual guide. Well, I've been guiding this whole process. I am a teacher. I have been a spiritual teacher. I am also a healer. I've been a Reiki healer for the last 20 years, as well as an intuitive counselor. And then my background is educationally is in addictions. So my awakening, I hope, is not going to be like other people's awakenings, because it's been absolutely brutal. Like the most brutal experience you could possibly imagine. And as I said, multiple rounds of Dark Night of the Soul, multiple rounds of spiritual crisis and emergency, multiple experiences with negative energies and entities and psychic attacks and stuff that even I didn't believe or understand or know what's happening. But all of those things had to happen for me. So whatever is going on, it is happening for you, and it is happening for you to collapse the ego that is exceptionally strong, to help you surrender, to help guide you back into alignment with soul, and all of these things. And I was not graceful. I was white knuckling it and in prayer and not graceful. Other people's awakenings are a lot smoother and a lot more graceful, and they hit that bliss phase, and Dark Night of the Soul goes down and they're like, I can just let go of my ego. So the easier that you are at letting go and going with the flow and surrendering, the easier it's going to be for you, for sure. Then we move into the void phase. And the void phase was equally as frustrating for me, not one that I enjoyed, because one of my coping strategies has always been to to be in that wounded masculine energy of the more action oriented I am, the more I control everything, that the easier my life is going to be. So the void is nothing is in your control. Absolutely zero things are into your control. Divine time, you're going to learn patience, and patience has never been my strong suit. So the more patient you are, the more gentle you are, the more feminine energy of, yeah, I'm just going to rest. I'm just going to relax through it, because in the dark night of the soul, you're doing so much deep, heavy duties, like boom, 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 boxing your way through your own personal healing. So then you come into the void and it's like, oh my God, I'm so tired. I'm exhausted. So you might go through phases, which is where I've been really kind of for the last month, although it's dipped down a little bit into the dark and then come back up. It's just exhaustion, the fatigue. Oh my God, the sleep. I feel like I've been asleep for a month, and my ego has not liked it. And ego isn't ever fully dead. It's just beaten into submission. It's just like resigned itself that, like, I surrender. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. But that doesn't mean it doesn't still have a voice in your ear that you're like, this is frustrating. I'm failing. I should be succeeding. So, we in this culture have this idea of what success looks like, of being very action oriented and being very accomplishment oriented, and what can I do? And so in the first phases of my awakening, I was doing so much in the bliss phase and doing so much in the dark night of the soul, one on the physical, but and then the emotional and on the spiritual, just doing. And then the void hits and you do nothing. It's nothingness. It's silence. It's stillness. It's exhaustion. It's restoration. It's repair. It's so much sleep. And that's very frustrating for me and for a lot of other people that would prefer to be kind of action-oriented. But it too serves a purpose. It's for you. It's to help you convalesce after what has been an exceptionally dark phase. And so it's actually a good sign that you're coming out and coming back up for air if you're in a sleep phase. So the better it is to surrender into it, allow it to be, and just accept that, okay, I'm going to sleep. There's been times that I'm like, oh my God, am I going to sleep for the rest of my life? Am I ever going to get up again? Am I ever going to do anything? Where's my energy? Is it ever going to come back? And instead of pushing through, which would have been old, wounded way of doing things, all those caffeine addicts out there, I'm talking to you, instead of doing that and saying and feeling guilty and shaming yourself and beating yourself up, saying, oh, I need to get out and I need to go for a walk, and I need to do this and I need to do that, and you got to listen to your body. You surrender to your body in the void phase, because it's like being stuck on a sailboat in the middle of the ocean and you can't go anywhere. So what's the point in trying? So you just have to live your Groundhog Day one after another, which is boring, which is annoying. There'll be the occasional purge that comes back up, and then you just you just have to just accept nothing is happening right now. Everything will happen when it's meant to happen. God's got this. I'm learning trust. I'm learning faith. So there's still lessons that are happening in the void phase that's going on. And then you start grounding. And the next phase being the grounding phase is all about kind of reintegrating all of the lessons that you've learned in the dark night of the soul, in the void phase, so that you can step forward and bring this new level of consciousness, a new level of awareness, a new level of peace, a new level of who am I now? Because your ego and your identity completely went through a state of collapse in Dark Night of the Soul. And in the void, you were just too tired to be able to fully integrate this new level of awareness. It was just about recovering from what happened prior, physically or emotionally. And then the grounding is like, oh, okay, I think I get it. I understand. I see what I want to do next. Everything is going to be okay. Oh, yeah, I can breathe again. I can relax a little bit. I can be in flow. It's a softer, gentler, more energized energy. And that's where I kind of woke up today, which is fantastic, in feeling these energies and just being like, oh, thank God that's over. So I don't know if I'll bounce now between the void and grounding and the void and grounding, or if there'll be another slight round of Dark Night of the Soul. I don't know, because when you come out of that is you realize that this is a little bit cyclical, and there isn't like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 kind of straight path through. There's more like, as I said, the pre-phase, the epiphany, which is the wake-up call, and then the bliss phase, and then unfortunately you don't get to go back into that one. But the bliss phase, so it's the Dark Night of the Soul, void, Dark Night of the Soul, void, Dark Night of the Soul, void, grounding, Dark Night of the Soul, void, grounding. And it kind of goes through like that a little bit to give, because if you just did, well, for me, because of my awakening being so intense, if I had just done Dark Night of the Soul in entirety, all of the things, without coming out for that void rest phase, I would have burned to a crisp. I wouldn't have made it. So you go down into the depths of hell, and then you come back up into the void, so you have some time to rest before you can you have to go back down again. So there's many battles. Throughout this, I've been kind of comparing my awakening to the Lord of the Rings. And, there's many battles in that. And there's many battles that you will face in this before that final convalescence that you require, which is absolutely exhausting. As I said, the last month, I've been so exhausted. And then you're going to start to see, as you're in the grounding phase, slight synchronicities coming in again, and slight improvements of things, and hints at, it's like when you open the flow of water, it starts with a few drops before there's a little bit more flow and a little bit more flow. And then, eventually, I know, because I have had visions, and I trust in those visions now, of what's coming for me, and in relation to divine mission. Because if you're on a twin flame awakening, ultimately you're going to be called into service. And if you're on a shaman's initiation, your service might look like speaking in front of a camera, teaching healing work. Not all twin flames are on a shaman's initiation. It's, and not all people who are on a shaman's initiation necessarily are twin flames. But If you are a twin flame, you definitely are called onto a mission of some kind. So if you're following me, it's very likely that you are a twin flame. It's very likely that you've had a Kundalini awakening. It's very likely that you are being put through your awakening because you have a divine mission, a purpose. And that, as I said, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be a teacher or a healer. Maybe it is. Maybe you're to work a regular job and be a light worker in a community because that community needs some assistance, working with kids, working in other fields. You could be working anywhere, writing a book. It doesn't matter. Your divine mission will present itself to you. I have noticed that amongst my clients, there is a commonality of a lot of people that are working in the medical field to start bridging the gap between, as I talked about when I was talking about Dark Night of the Soul, there's this divide between the psychological perspective or psychiatric viewpoint of awakenings and spirituality. So all of those people out there that are and see, even my background was traditional addictions and spirituality. So many of the people that might be resonating with my teachings might as well be on a shaman's initiation, so that their mission is to step forth into bridging the gap between old ways of thinking in regards to mental health, emotional health, physical health, addictions, trauma, any of these types of things with spirituality, because you have experienced your own spiritual awakening or are experiencing your own spiritual awakening, which means you have both education and experience to come together to be the bridge. So a lot of my clients have all shared with me similar stories. There's a common theme of stepping up and saying, like, listen, my background, this is what I've worked in, but now I'm having these experiences and I can see why there's a disconnect. And I'm like, you're placed there on purpose. That is exactly where you need to be, because as we go through a shift in consciousness globally, for humanity, we need people who have had spiritual awakenings placed in traditional medical facilities, whether those be for physical health, emotional health, mental health. We need spiritually awake people to be able to help create the shift in our approaches to these situations, so that for the very reason that others coming into the system don't feel frightened like I did and get traumatized which is the last thing you want during a spiritual awakening, traumatized in the traditional settings because they don't understand the spiritual point of view. So that could be your mission. You will know your mission because bit by bit, it will present to you. And I can guarantee in regards to your mission that everything in your life has a piece to the puzzle. As I said, a piece to the puzzle. My background is in acting. That's what I did as a child. I went to half academics, half arts. It was like Fame. I don't know if remember that show. So I went to a specialized art school. So using all my skills in theater background, I know how to communicate clearly. I know how to use my diaphragm, which helps me in front of a camera. I know how to, present in different ways. And so this has been part of my mission. If I hadn't have had that experience, I wouldn't have been able to do the YouTube. And I certainly would not have been able to do it through my awakening, which I was in a state of terror. So even though I was terrified, I'm like, suck it up. I'm going to get in front of a camera and I'm going to say things, and it didn't matter that I was umming or ahhing. I was just going to do it anyways. And I had to have that experience to do the next thing. I wouldn't have been able to do what I'm doing if I hadn't have had my training as an addictions counselor, if I hadn't have had my own personal experiences with narcissistic abuse and trauma, if I hadn't have become a Reiki master and understood the energetic system. See, so every single thing in your life adds up to your mission. So if you're wondering, well, what is my mission? Look at your life and just keep taking steps in the right direction. And piece by piece, it will come to you. It's not like Spirit's going to send you an itinerary. I would love that. I would have absolutely adored if Spirit had said to me, listen, at age this is going to happen. At age that's going to happen. At age this is going to happen. But then we wouldn't learn the lesson of trust. And lesson of trust has been exceptionally difficult lesson for me because I wasn't raised with faith. I had no religious background. In fact, I was raised in a home that was mostly anti-religious. The concept of God would have been scoffed at in my household. So for me to now be in the energy of, listen, I am in union with God because the twin flame situationship is bringing you into union. And so union means union with yourself. That means your authentic self. It means union with God, bringing you back to, and whether you want to use the word God, source, the universe, the divine, it really doesn't matter. Bringing you back to spirit so that you can be one with spirit and connected, that interconnection that's happening, bringing you into union with your mission so you know what your mission is, what you were put here to do, so you can help assist humanity in one way, shape, or form. Union with soul tribe. You start coming together with people that resonate with you, and those people aren't going to be in your immediate family or your immediate situations or your immediate friendships. They're going to be at a distance to you, and understand there's a reason for that as well, because we are all on a grid, spread out. Light workers are all spread out and so we can't be right beside each other. No different than any other grid. If you think about your lighting in your neighborhood, there's a light here and a light post here and a light post there. They're not all clustered together on one street corner. They're all spread out. And so we are all spread out across the globe too, and spread out into all kinds of different environments. We can't all be working in the same healing center. We're not all meant to be healers. We're all meant to be spread exactly in everywhere. So there's going to be people waking up in education. There's going to be people waking up in politics. There's going to be people waking up in Hollywood. There's going to be people waking up in small towns. There's going to be people waking up all over the place because we are spread out as grid workers, and part of our mission is just to exist, hold our light in our community. So you may be drawn to certain communities or locations around the world that you're like, I feel like I need to go to Mexico. I would love to go to Mexico. Spirit currently wants me exactly where I am. So throughout this journey, I've been like, oh my God, I need to sell my house. I don't know what's happening. Ego been in a state of panic and collapse. And the longer that this battle has gone on for, what it's done for me, again, everything for me is to say, no, you're not allowed to leave yet. You've got mission right where you are. So there are missions within your missions within your missions. Your mission is not a career necessarily. Please be aware of that. A lot of people think that their purpose or their mission is all about stepping in to this, I'm going to be a Reiki healer and own my own business. This could be lovely. Yeah, that might be part of it, but also part of it might means you need to live in Notting Hill and write a children's book or just hold space because your neighbor across from you requires your light. So I'm held where I am because, boom, lo and behold, I rent out rooms, and the people that I rent out rooms to I consider my soul children. And they've been divinely brought to me, and it's the biggest gift that I could have got. And so you're meeting people and you're connecting with people in all kinds of situations that you might not be able to foresee, or you might not be able to plan. So that's why we don't have an itinerary. We trust that Spirit is guiding us to where we need to be on the planet, so we can just be ourselves, emanating out. As you walk through your neighborhood, you're just spreading light to people. When you smile at people, you're doing your mission. Okay, your mission might look like just going to the grocery store and smiling at the lady who's having a bad day, and you give her a little bit of insight and a little bit of help just by being. So mission doesn't mean vocation. Okay, mission could be your location. Mission could be the people that you interact with. It could also mean your vocation, your calling. So I'm called to work with people. I'm called to do this YouTube. I'm called to do these things. So listen to the impulses of what you're called to do, and be aware you're not going to necessarily want to do those things because they're going to go outside of your comfort zone. And so they may be scary as hell. I know one woman who was terrified of water, and now she teaches swimming lessons, right? So be aware that it's not going to be a nice little stroll through a poppy field and isn't this sweet and lovely, and yes, I've always wanted to do this. No, you're going to be asked to do things that are uncomfortable, that are scary, and then you need to just do them anyways. So that is a recap of the the phases of an awakening, and then the final being you're living it. You're living your authentic life. You're living in truth. You're living your mission. You're living in purpose. So if you need help on any of these levels, on any of these phases of your awakening, if there's one particular area that you're struggling with, because each of these phases is like a school within itself, and each school has assignments and challenges and difficulties and any number of things that you're going to face along the way. And if you need help, please feel free to book a one-on-one Zoom with me. The way to do that is to send me off an email at justbebeing@gmail.com, or reach out to me to book through my Facebook Messenger, Be Freedom. All my services are donation based, because if you're in dark night of the soul, you may not be working. That may have been one of the things that's taken away from you, but you have to trust that Spirit will provide. As I said, I've been provided with renters in my house to keep me, afloat, and credit. And there's another thing is you need to let go sometimes of your desire to hold on to how you think your life should look within the societal expectation of that, and accept you will go through downs and you will go through ups. And so that's been another lesson for me along the way, is to accept the fact that I can't micromanage even my money. I'm going to just have to faith that Spirit will provide what I need when I need that, and it will all work itself out in the end. So do what you need to do to get through it. And if you need help, please let me know. I'm sending you all my absolute love, no matter what stage you are in. And thank you very much for all the likes, the shares, the subscriptions. The more I can get my channel out to other people So if you know other people that are going through possibly an awakening and they don't even know that they're going through awakening, perhaps this is a video that you can send to them if they're having a healing crisis, going through depression, that pre-awakening phase that I talked about. Please share this video in your networks. I really appreciate that. It helps the channel greatly. And I'm sending you all my absolute love. Peace out, dudes.